Ahoy and welcome to this Narrowboat Adventure. So today we are doing something that I've had actually requested a few times. I am showing you something going horribly wrong as it happens. So I am Jasmin from the future, because Jasmin of the past, or present for you guys, didn't remember to film an introduction because she was too stressed out. So some of you have asked for me to film a video when things are actually going wrong. So here I am doing that. So we're about 3 days from being back home again, or at least back to where we want to be for a couple of weeks. We've got full toilets, we've got loads of rubbish to throw away, and we just pushed off from the mooring we were on, and as soon as my partner engaged the throttle there was a big clunk and the engine stopped, and so we just pushed her. Well, I punted her to the other side of the canal, and then so we started methodically working through the things that we had recently done to try and figure out what was wrong. So we recently replaced the throttle cable, we recently changed the oil, and we also recently tightened the prop shaft. Not the prop shaft, we tightened the stern gland. So first of all we loosened the stern gland a little bit. That wasn't it. So then we were looking at the cabling behind, because the throttle wasn't moving, like we couldn't put it back into neutral. So we were looking at the cabling behind, where the throttle is, to try and figure out what was going wrong. I spoke with my dad, and he said it's possible that the throttle cable has sort of worked itself a bit loose, and then that's what's jamming it. So we took the end on the actual throttle of the throttle cable, we unattached that, and it was still the same problem. And then so we were looking at where the cable that goes from the throttle to the gearbox was going and what was happening when we moved it. And my partner spotted this bolt that had come unattached, and it's the bolt between the gearbox and the propeller. So what's happened is that the thing that holds those two together has come and attached on one side. The other side, obviously, when he started to turn the propeller, has hit the gearbox. It doesn't look like any oil's coming out of the gearbox, so fingers crossed we don't need a new gearbox, but it's possible. This looks like it could be like really quite bad. So I've just sent some pictures to John, the guy we normally use, and also my brother. It's really just a matter of who's going to tell us how bad the damage is first. And now we have, because the side that we've punted to is a no mooring area, we have to now try and punt her back to where we were, and wait to find out how bad this is. So he starts sending us instructions on loosening all the bolts on the coupling to unattach the coupling from the gearbox. We start trying to do this, and basically there comes a point where we realise we can't, because the bolt, we can't get the ends off. So we let John know, and he says he'll pop by when he's done with the other things he's doing that day. So he came, had a look, and basically we figured out that we'd have to hacksaw off the end of the bolt that bent. So he's hacksawed that off, and we managed to take the thing apart, go and buy a new bolt and reattach it all back together. now we have a working engine, but when we go into forward gear it goes clunk, which John thinks is because something's gone wrong with the thrust.
I think as it's gone, it's damaged it, so it's now got play that way. Yeah. So when you put it into gear, I don't know if you noticed, but it all shifts forwards. Right. So it's just taking up that slack in the bearing. Yeah. So it's all just popping forwards a couple of millimetres.
What is all?
All the drive shaft and that. It's what's called thrust. As it goes into forwards, the propeller starts going, and the recoil of pushing water that way tries to push it forwards. So it's got a little bit of slack now where it didn't have before. So before, that bearing would hold it still. So all that forward would just be forward for the whole boat. Yeah. But now, because it's got a little bit of movement in it, it's just going clunk. So that initial is pushing forward. That's why you don't.
And is it going to damage something else in the engine? Is the main thing, I guess.
It's going to be progressive. But there's not much, you can't do anything about it unless you
apart from get a new one.
And to replace the bearing, you've got to have a gearbox out, which will immobilise you for a while, because you'll have no gearbox.
John was going to go because he had another job, but he's postponed that because he's got a nagging feeling that it might be something else, like a what was the thing he said? A clutch plate or something else. Either way, we're taking off the gearbox to figure out what part it is that we need to replace, and we're going to either replace the part or we might have to just buy a new gearbox, which is, it would maybe only be £100 more to get the gearbox with all the parts than it would be to just get the part anyway on its own. Right, so it's not good news. It's going to cost a lot of money to fix, and so it's a bit disappointing. But we're going to find out today what's going on. So, and we can move. So hopefully we're going to move down to Watford Junction tomorrow, and then we'll have to stay there until we've got the part to replace it. Great.
You're feeling the way it's doing it?
Feels alright,
Really? You'd expect to feel quite a bit of movement. You should
there's a little bit, but you're supposed to have a little bit.
So it might be something else then.
Well, it doesn't move that way.
John is just going back to his car and he says, I just want to check one more thing. And he comes back, takes off the gearbox, which thankfully with our weird Italian engine only takes about half an hour. And he looks at the gearbox and that's not the problem. The thing that he thought was knocked out of line is still in line, and we realise that what has actually happened is, just with the sheer force of the engine stopping when the coupling hit the gearbox, it's slightly damaged the drive plate, which is the clutch. So that's bad news, but it's not as bad as it could have been if it was the gearbox. So we need to order a new drive plate. We look online, it's very expensive. My brother, thankfully, is a diesel engineer, and he is very good at helping us to find parts for not as expensive. So he, the fantastic star that he is, thank you Jonathan, helps us to find a part for less money. Still expensive, but much less than we had worried about it being. A few weeks later the part arrives, and then we get John back to replace the part, and he shows us with the new part side by side with the old part. You can see the damage because there's like a spring, and on the new part it's straight on the edges of the spring, and on the broken one you can see where the spring has been rubbing against the edge of the metal.
You see where it's bitten in? The spring's all rattly there.
Ah.
The whole thing has play. That one doesn't. Springs don't move.
And so we put the new part in, and the engine works, and there's no clunks, and that's what happened in the end. So it was probably over about 3 or 4 weeks that this all went on, so it was a bit stressful for that time, to be honest. But it all got fixed, and now you guys get to see the logical way that we go about seeing what's wrong with an engine, seeing if we can fix it, and then getting in the help if we need it. So thanks so much for watching, and please do comment down below if you would like to let me know about a time that you have had to use your logic to figure out what was wrong and then still had to get someone in. Or just tell me whatever you want. Tell me how your day's gone. I don't mind. I love to hear from you. Anyway, if you want to, you can click down below, click subscribe, and join us again on another adventure. You can go over to Facebook where I post the videos if you want to get notifications there. And if you want to, some of you lovely people have been helping me out on Patreon, which means that I can get better equipment and make better videos for you. Thank you very much for watching. Have a beautiful day and stay wonderful.